Hello! Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last fortnight, in the technology world that is, you'll probably be aware that Apple have released the new Apple TV. Here it is, it's the Apple TV 4. It replaced this, which is the Apple TV 3. And from this angle, they look identical. But from this angle, you can see that the Apple TV 4 is slightly taller than the Apple TV 3. So what's the difference between the two boxes? What's changed? And what do they like to use, or what is the Apple TV 4 like to use? This video is split into three parts. In the first part, we'll be comparing the specs of the old and the new Apple TV. In the second part, we'll be going through and looking at tvOS, which is the new operating system on the new unit. And finally, there'll be a summary of what I think has really changed and what else is going on. So let's start with those specs. So here we have the Apple TV 4 and the Apple TV 3. Apple TV 4 on the left and the Apple TV 3 on the right. Now, the main spec differences between these two is the Apple TV 3 is running an Apple A5 processor. Now, that was the most up-to-date processor when it was released, which I think was in 2012. The Apple TV 4 has an Apple A8 processor. So it's a bit faster, but yeah, okay, it's not Apple's most up-to-date chip. Now, memory-wise, the Apple TV 3 has 512 megabytes and the Apple TV 4 has 2 gigabytes. The 3 had 8 gigabytes of storage space. The 4 comes with 32 or 64 gigs of storage space, which of course is more relevant now when it comes to storing apps, because the Apple TV 3 doesn't have access to the App Store. And when it comes to wireless, the Apple TV 3 went up to 802.11n, but the 4 also supports AC. So let's have a look at the ports on the back of the Apple TV. Apple TV 4, as I said, is on the left and the Apple TV 3 on the right. And you can see already the height difference between the two, but other than that, they're very similar. Now, the wired network ports, you can see on the right-hand side here, the Ethernet ports, both units are 10100 Ethernet, a fast Ethernet. So this has not got gigabit Ethernet in it. If you think that this is going to download apps from an app store, the lack of gigabit Ethernet is perhaps a little strange, but okay, it's got faster Wi-Fi on it, but I'll talk a bit more about that later. They both have Bluetooth 4. When it comes to HDMI, this had the bog standard HDMI port. I think it's 1.2. Anyway, the 1.4 is what's included on the Apple TV 4. No sign of HDMI 2 in this unit just yet. Now, the Apple TV 4 has an accelerometer in the remote. So let's put the remote there, just into shot. It's a very interesting looking remote, different from the one that came with the Apple TV 3. And video-wise, the Apple TV 3 and 4 both support HD video, but neither of them support 4K. When it comes to the remotes, here we have the two remotes. So that's probably the biggest difference between the two. On the right is the Apple TV 3 remote. This nice aluminium remote, and it's got just 3 buttons on it. The menu button there, a play and pause button, and then here it's got a central actually OK button. I suppose you could say it's got 4 buttons really, because then it's got an up, down, left, right wheel there. Now, the Apple TV 4 has some more buttons on it. It's got a volume control, which will actually connect in and talk to your television. You've got the play and pause button there. You've also got a menu button and the TV button there. This big button at the top here, this is actually a button, this will click. If you press it, it will click, but it also allows your finger to swipe across it, and we'll look a bit more of that when we look at tvOS, because you can actually interact with touch, which is quite nifty. We'll have a look at that in a moment. And the other thing is this microphone button here, which is a Siri button, which enables you to talk to your television, which if you've got no friends like me is a real boon. Okay, so that's how the units stack up and what's on the Apple TV 4 compared to the Apple TV 3. Now let's have a look at tvOS, which is the operating system that comes with the new Apple TV. Let's have a look at it in operation. So here we are now, we're in my living room, and you're very welcome. We're going to look at tvOS. And what I've done is I've got my main camera pointing at the television, as you can see, and I've got my smaller camera now pointing at me. So lower quality, which is better. Now let's have a look at tvOS. Now the first thing, a word perhaps about installation. When you first get your Apple TV and you've configured the region, you'll need to connect it to your network. Now I've connected mine to my Ethernet. If you connect yours to your Wi-Fi, then what you'll be able to do is to hold your iOS device close to your Apple TV, and it can read your Wi-Fi settings via Bluetooth, which is a neat trick and saves you having to type in those long codes that you often get as a Wi-Fi password by default. Now, next, let's have a look at the interface. Let's have a look at the interface of the Apple TV 4. If you've got an Apple TV 3, it actually looks quite similar, but it's had a lick of paint. So it looks like modern iOS and Mac OS 10. But the big difference is that on the Apple TV 3, you had a lot of installed options that weren't particularly great outside of the United States. So on Apple TV 4, the big difference is the App Store. So if I just move to there, you can see we've got an App Store. It just doesn't exist on the Apple TV previously to this. Now, I've already installed a couple of things. If I scroll down, you can see I've got Netflix on there, for example. Now, if I go into the App Store, you can see that we've got a lot of options that are very similar to those that you find on App Store, say on the Mac App Store and the iOS App Store. For example, we've got top charts and items that have been purchased. Top free apps are there, for example. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install YouTube, which seems appropriate. So let's go over there and scroll down and look at YouTube. Press the button, and we get a synopsis of what this particular app is about. We get some various screenshots down here, and as usual on any kind of app store on iOS, you get different ratings and you can rate it yourself. So let's go on there. I can see the install button. So if I press that button there, you can see that it's thinking about it. And just like it would do on any kind of iOS device, it would then install it, and it's done it already, and is now offering me the option to open. I'm actually not going to open it. I'm going to go back to my main screen, and we'll be able to see now I have YouTube as an option down the bottom. If I now go into YouTube, it's probably going to be asking me, oh no, there we go. I was going to say it's asking me to log in, but there's some recent bits and pieces on YouTube that we could look at, but we're not going to. Now, of course, you've got other options on the App Store, such as games, for example. But you can also search for things. So let's go across here and we'll look at the search. And you can see that we've got a long keyboard at the very top of the screen. It's not a keyboard really. You used to have a grid on the Apple TV 3, a sort of 9 by 9-ish grid. I can't remember exactly what it was now, it was bigger than that. But it was a grid all the same. What we've got here is a long line. Now, it's a good opportunity here to have a look at this remote. It is a lot different, as we've already seen, to the remote that you get on the Apple TV 3. And if I hold this up to the camera, you can see that we've got this big area at the top that I was talking about. This is actually a touch area. So what I'm going to do is, while we've got that, both of them on the screen, I'm going to swipe. Oh, hang on, let's go down. Search, there we go. So if I show you what I'm doing, is I am swiping my finger across, and you can see as I'm moving my finger across or back, the cursor is moving. And of course, the more you move your finger, the faster or slower it will go. It sort of responds to your finger. It's actually quite a good idea for an interface, better than just press, up, down, left, right, which can get quite annoying if you're trying to navigate through a great deal of numbers and letters. This actually does work really well. You can adjust the sensitivity. The default is medium, that's what I've got it set on, but you can alter it to suit you better. Now this would actually, of course, enable you to search for apps and search for different things, but there's a much better way that you can search on the Apple TV 4. And if I show you the remote, we have this button here that I was talking about earlier. This is the Siri button. And if anybody has used Siri before, and let's face it, who hasn't if you've got a modern iOS device, it's a great way of finding out things. For example, I'm using my phone at the moment. I was going to use my phone to ask Siri a question, but I won't, because I can't. But if I hold down the Siri button, that's what you have to do on the Apple TV 4. You've got to hold down the button to ask it a question. So let me hold down a question. Hold down the button rather. Film starring Eddie Redmayne. and I take my finger off the button, and you can see straight away it's found a load of stuff on here. For example, there's the theory of everything, and it will then give me the synopsis and an option to buy or open it there in iTunes. Now, this searching feature that we're looking at will actually work across apps that you've got installed. So I've got Netflix installed on there, so if I hold down the Siri button again, House of Cards, and I go down there we can see that it's found some matches for House of Cards. Now, it has found the two options that I was expecting it to find, which is the original BBC series from the early 1990s, which is great, and of course it has got the American version of House of Cards set in the States, obviously. And so if I choose one of those, or a House of Cards trilogy, let's just try that one and see where it takes me, because I know you can get that on Netflix. There we are. So it's got it on iTunes, series 1 to 3, and there it's got it on Netflix, and it says 2 series. Now, there we go. And if I scroll down, we've got the various bits and pieces, the various options in there. So if I go to Netflix, I'm just wondering whether it's going to be clever enough. There we go. Siri wants to open Netflix, so we go open. And what it should then do is take me into Netflix, and there it is. And of course, it's gone straight into Netflix, where it knows what I've already watched. It knows that I've already watched season 1, and because I'm rewatching it because I haven't seen it for years. And it knows now that I'm into season 2, and I haven't watched episode 2 yet, which is great. It's just taken the interface to where I need to be. So I'm now going to quit out of Netflix and come back into the Apple TV interface there. So of course, at the moment, with only having YouTube and Netflix installed for media, and of course you get the default options, you can see along the top there, iTunes movies, iTunes TV shows, and the app stores in the middle, and photos and music are the other ones. But for the installed apps, I've got Netflix and YouTube. It will know to search across those, because that's what I've got installed. As you find and install more apps, it will then search across more of those. Apple are saying that they want people to be able to buy content from wherever they want to buy it, which is interesting coming from a company that really wants you to buy it from them, let's be honest. But, you know, hey, I'm not knocking it. There it gave me the option for House of Cards, and it said iTunes, and it also said Netflix. And presumably, if you had other options, come on Amazon, sort yourselves out, it would show those as well. Okay, there's one other thing that I want to show you on the Apple TV, and that is this thing here, which is Plex. Now, Plex, if you don't know, is a home streaming media server. You can install the software on your Mac or PC. You can also install it, as I have done, on a NAS drive. And I'm going to do another more detailed video about Plex in the future. And you can see on here that it's got an interface that's very similar to other interfaces that you could find on Apple TV. So it looks very like the movies and the Netflix and everything else. Now, if I go into TV shows, remember this is now talking to my own server, and it's finding. So let's go to all. It's finding shows that these are ones that I've actually bought previously on DVD, but I'm now taking them off DVD and putting them onto my NAS drive. And so, for example, there we go. We've got Blackadder and Father Ted. I haven't moved all of my DVD collection across. It takes time to do, but I have gradually moving them across. There's Father Ted, for example. So if I go in there, you can see that it's got season 1 of Father Ted, and it's got all the various options on there. And the clever thing about Plex is that it's found the thumbnails for me. I didn't put those on there, and it's also found the précis. I didn't put that on there either. But I'm going to do more of about Plex in a future video, and how I've set it up, if that sort of thing is of interest to you. I think actually this Plex app does look very good. And on Apple TV at the moment, it's free, which is also another good thing. So that's tvOS on the new Apple TV 4. Okay, so that's tvOS, and that's what you'll be using if you get the new Apple TV 4. And so in summary, I suppose that is probably the big difference. between the Apple TV 4 and a Roku or a Chromecast or one of the other streaming units, Amazon Fire TV, that it's the operating system that I think differentiates using the Apple TV 4 from those other devices. The other thing, of course, is the App Store, and it's going to be interesting to see what developers do with that. I'm a developer myself. I've had an Apple TV 4 for a while and I've been playing with various ideas, but there's some really interesting things out there. A developer, for example, has released some games that work with 3D TVs, so you put the specs on, you can play games in 3D. It's a bit different. I don't know really how it's going to pan out, and I don't suppose anybody does really, but Apple are saying apps are the future, so well, we'll see. It's pleasing in the UK that the BBC have announced that the iPlayer will be coming to the Apple TV. I think really in the UK the unit would have been dead without it. So we'll see what happens when that's released in a few months' time. The other thing in summary, I suppose, is why is the Apple TV 4 not compatible with 4K? That to me is the elephant in the room. Okay, so there's not a lot of 4K content out there, but there is some, and there's increasingly going to be more. So as we head towards 2016 at the time of recording, I can't believe that a brand new streaming device that's just been released doesn't support 4K. The other thing, as I touched on earlier on, is the lack of gigabit Ethernet. That seems a bit odd when you've got an app store. Okay, so most people will perhaps hook this up via Wi-Fi, and it does have a fast Wi-Fi connection on. But if, like me, you're a fan of wired connections because they don't have some of the problems that Wi-Fi connections can have, such as trying to contend with your neighbour's Wi-Fi or even, goodness, your fridge, then why on earth would you not put the fastest available Ethernet in here? And really, gigabit Ethernet is going to be replaced, and there are other faster Ethernet solutions out there already. So why would you not put gigabit Ethernet in here? It doesn't make sense to me. The other thing for me is also the lack of an optical out port. You have one on the Apple TV 3, so why on earth have you not got one in the 4? It doesn't seem to make sense. Okay, they're going to say, Apple, I suppose, that if you plug HDMI into your TV, then you probably route it from your TV. Most TVs will have maybe a sound bar. People use other technologies for their sound these days, but I still think that a lack of an optical out, for some people, me included, is a bit of an own goal. So which one should you buy? Should you buy an Apple TV 4? Should you even buy the Apple TV 3, which is still available? Or should you get one of the other many streaming units that are available? I think it depends on what you want to watch, because, for example, Amazon Prime have already removed the Apple TV and Chromecast from their store because they want to push the Amazon Prime video service on the Fire TV and other devices that they sell. And there's going to be increasing competition like that. I think it's a bit of an own goal there by Amazon particularly. I mean, you can still use Amazon Prime on your iPhone or iPad and AirPlay it to your Apple TV, but it's not quite the same as a native app. So yeah, I think it's difficult to say, it's difficult to justify the expense of the Apple TV 4 when there are cheaper streaming units that are available out there that you could perhaps get for now while the market settles down. I certainly would think twice about this if you're interested in 4K, because although there's very little 4K content out there at the moment, there is going to be more as time goes on. So, Apple TV 4 for you? Maybe, maybe not. It's worth keeping an eye on how things go, and the App Store and the remote are fantastic, so maybe that will swing it for you. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to the Apple TV 4 and enjoyed watching the video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't, then I suppose give it a thumbs down. And you can, of course, keep in touch with me by reading my blog. It's at andyclayton.uk. Follow me on Twitter, at andyclayton, and on Instagram, I'm andyjwclayton. Thanks ever so much for watching. I'll see you next time.